I remember when I went to her place and I went on her computer, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing a secret file that was named Bubba. And when I clicked on it, I realized there was videos of me and her doing the Devil's Tango. And that's when I knew I got leaked. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another really insane, but I gotta say crazy story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 12 year. So I was graduating around this time, and honestly, a lot of crazy things happened in my grade 12 year, to the point where I'm not gonna lie, I don't think anyone could survive it. But I remember in my grade 12 year, there was one specific person in my high school that was really well known. And the only reason she was super well known was because, well, she was always like known for being in the cheer team, being one of the smartest girls in class. She was basically the goody two-shoes that was super attractive. And I remember one day I was walking down the high school hallway with my textbooks in my hand, and out of nowhere I ended up seeing her and she bumped into me. She ended up basically like hitting my shoulder, and I ended up dropping my textbooks to the point where she turned around and said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there." "Oh, it's all good. Don't worry about it. I could just pick it up. Here, let me help you." And I remember as we were picking up the textbooks, out of nowhere she looks at me and says, "Oh, I didn't know you were in this class." "What, art?" "Yeah, I'm just taking art class for, I don't know, just credits, I guess." "Oh, so you're not like into art?" "Well, I am. Here's some drawings I did." And I remember one of the drawings I showed her was basically a photo of, well, of like the human body. I don't want to get into details, but let's just say it wasn't really known as appropriate, but it was considered a form of art. I remember she saw the art and she actually said, "Oh, wow, this is really good. I'm really into the art of the human body." "Oh, that's cool." "Yeah, sorry, what was your name again?" "Oh, my name is Bubba." And at that moment, me and her, we actually ended up basically exchanging numbers, and we actually ended up deciding to hang out. It was really out of nowhere, and don't get me wrong, it was actually insane because a lot of people in my school knew about this girl, so me having a shot with her was really out of nowhere. But this is where things get insane, because I remember when I finally get to my next class, out of nowhere, my buddy ends up walking up to me. He walks up to me and says, "Bubba, bro, I saw you talking to her in the hallway, man. Like, are you guys like a thing now or something?" "Oh, no, we're just talking." "I don't know, man. She had that look in her eye like she liked you, you know what I'm saying?" No. You're overthinking it, bro." And at that moment, we ended up sitting down beside each other and working. And I remember throughout that entire class, she would always text me back to back as well, which, I mean, really showed that she liked me, until I remember when I pulled out my phone to see one of the text messages, there was a girl behind me that looked over my shoulder and saw that I was texting her. And then she ended up saying, "Bubba, are you actually talking to her? Like, seriously? What's wrong with her?" "Bubba, you do know, like, all of her exes, like, apparently, like, disappeared." What do you mean?" "Well, like, they ended up, like, deleting, like, all their social media, and, like, they don't even go to school anymore. Like, I don't know what it is, but that girl causes trouble." At that moment, I was so confused because everyone's vision of her, you know, was this perfect girl, but now apparently she has like some dark secret that her exes apparently disappear. It really made no sense to me, and honestly, in my mind, I just thought that maybe this girl that was talking trash about her was just jealous that she was known as being Miss Perfect. But let's just say what ended up happening next kind of blew my mind, because I remember when lunch came around, I ended up walking down the hallway and she saw me walk by, and she actually ended up walking up to me saying, "Hey, Bubba, I was wondering, what are you doing after school today?" "Oh, I was just planning on doing homework." "Why?" "Oh, like, do you want to, like, I don't know, do some studying together? We can go to like a cafe or something." Yeah, I'm down 100%. And as she walks away, she says, "Okay, cool, see you after school." At that moment, I was really excited, and my buddy was right beside me when all that happened, so he looks at me and says, "Bro, you have a date with her? Let's go, bro. Look at you." And I remember I was super excited, but in the back of my mind, I still felt something was fishy. I wasn't sure exactly what. Something was still kind of triggering me, if that makes any sense. Going on with the story, I remember after school finally came around, and I ended up meeting up with her in front of the school. We ended up walking to the cafe because I didn't have my car that day for some reason. And when we finally got there, we ended up sitting down and started doing homework. But I remember as I was doing my homework, she kept staring at me in the most weirdest way, as if she wanted something. Now, don't get me wrong, the look she was giving me was common because, you know, I recognized that look anywhere. It was the look of her wanting to do the Devil's Tango with me. But the thing about her that was very odd was that it seemed like it was in a really bad way. Like she had ill intent to do something wrong. So I look over at her and say, "Hey, like, you okay? Like, is your homework too hard or something?" "Oh, no, I'm just, you know, distracted." "Distracted by what?" "Well, I don't know, like, you're cute." At that moment, I started blushing. This girl was complimenting me, asking me out, like, she's definitely into me. And at that moment, I'm like, you know what? Who cares what that weird girl said in my class? Like, honestly, she seems perfect. So I remember after a while, me and her, we decided to basically go back to her place. And when we did, I remember me and her, we instantly definitely went to the bedroom, and well, you guys probably know what I'm gonna say here, but we ended up doing the Devil's Tango. Things were going great. She was fantastic. She seemed experienced, and on top of that, she was just really entertaining to be around. Even afterwards, she got me a cup of coffee. Like, what girl does that? I remember afterwards, I ended up leaving the house because it was getting late, and I ended up leaving her place, and I started walking home. And as I was walking home, I recognized there was a car following me. Now, it wasn't any creepy white van. It wasn't anything like, you know, that seemed sketchy. It was just a basic BMW that was following right behind me. And when I looked behind me, I kept like staring at it, and I saw it was some dude wearing a hat and sunglasses. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, there's no one in this planet Earth that should be wearing sunglasses and a hat at the same time. Like, it makes no sense. So that's when I decided to full on stop, and the car stopped right behind me, and I decided to walk over to the driver's side of the vehicle and told him to roll down his window. I remember he was nervous to do it, but then he ended up rolling it down, and he said, is there a problem here? Yeah, are you following me? Maybe. Yeah. I just have a question. Yeah, okay. What's your question? The girl the house you came out of. Did anything happen? What are you talking about? No, nothing happened. Why would you even want to know? 1 second. I remember he ended up parking the car, and he ended up coming out of it, and he took off his hat and sunglasses, and it was just some basic ordinary dude that, to be honest, I kind of recognized because I think he went to my high school, but I wasn't sure exactly who this person was. And that's when he told me, listen, bro, this is gonna sound really weird, but the house you just came out of was my ex-girlfriend's, and like, I don't know, there's like some crazy stuff that happened. I just want to know if like, you know, she showed you anything or like, you know, leaked anything. Leaked anything? What would she have to leak? Well, like, have you ever like been on her computer? No. Why would I go on her computer? Well, like, did you notice that the camera was on when you were like, you know, in her room? At that moment, when he said, was the camera on, I started to panic because that can only mean one thing. And that's when I looked over at him and said, to be honest, I don't remember. Dude, good luck. He ended up putting his hat and sunglasses back on, and he just drove away. At that moment, I ended up going home, and I ended up calling my buddy, and I ended up kind of like, you know, panicking to him, telling him like what's going on. And my buddy only said, bro, there's no way a girl would do that, man. Like, think about it. Like, she's like the perfect girl. You're getting in your head too much. Like, you understand, that was an ex, and exes never have good news to say about their exes. Yeah, you're probably right, is what I told him. But the next day at school, things ended up getting weirder. Because I remember the next day at school, I ended up walking around the school hallway, and as I was walking down the hallway, I remember I saw a bunch of random girls just started looking at me weirdly. Like, don't get me wrong, girls look at me all the time, but the way they were looking at me was as if I was wearing nothing. Like, it was really, really weird. And I remember I looked at one of them, and I started to walk up to them, and they ended up running away. Not even like walking fast, like they actually ran away. At that moment, I knew something was wrong. So as I was heading towards my classroom to see my friend and talk to the girl that, you know, warned me about this girl, I ended up seeing the girl that I saw the day before, the girl that, you know, I did the Devil's Tango with, and she ended up walking up to me saying, hey, Bubba, like, what you up to? Nothing, just heading to class, that's all. Okay, you're acting kind of strange. Is everything all right? Did anyone say anything to you? No, I was just, you know, just doing my thing. Why? Is there something I should know? Oh, no, nothing at all. And that's when she ended up walking away. At that moment, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to show it because obviously I wanted to check what was on her computer. Ever since her ex warned me about that, I needed to figure out what was going on. So I remember I ended up yelling out to her as she was walking away and said, hey, what are you doing tonight, by the way? Nothing. Why? I mean, can I come over? At that moment, she smiled and she winked and said, of course you can, anytime. And she walked away. At that moment, I knew what my mission was. I just wasn't sure if I was going to execute it right. Because I remember after school that day, I ended up getting in my car because I actually brought my car this time and drove over to her place. And when we got to her place, we ended up going inside her bedroom. And the first thing I look at was the camera on her desk. And that's when I realized it was a motion sensor camera. So whenever someone would walk in front of the camera, it would turn on and start recording. At that moment, I ended up looking at her and I said, is the camera on? Oh, no, it's off. It just does that sometimes. It's really weird. Here, come here. Let's have fun. And right before we started doing the Devil's Tango, I look at her and say, do you have like a napkin I can borrow? Yeah, there's one in the bathroom. Let me go get it. And as she's going to the bathroom, first thing I do is I sprint over to her computer. I scroll through her computer and I saw there was a file named after me. I ended up opening it and I saw she ended up recording the entire time me and her were doing the Devil's Tango. And that's not even the worst part because I saw there was a group chat that was on her computer and literally no joke, she had videos posted to a group chat of a bunch of girls that went to my school and they all saw me and her doing it. At that moment, I realized my tape got leaked and I was in major panic. I remember she ends up walking in and she says, what are you doing on my computer? And at that moment, I looked at her and honestly, I didn't have enough time to get any proof of anything, so I lied about it. I looked at her and said, listen, I took photos of everything on that computer and I'm not gonna lie to you right now, the fact that you did all that that was disgusting. So I'm gonna call the cops and show them this evidence I got. If you don't, delete all this right now. I remember she starts panicking and she starts deleting everything on her computer, and her parents ended up walking in and asking what was going on. But since she was already deleting everything, I didn't see a need to tell them. And well, one thing led to another. I remember once I left the house, she ended up blocking me on everything, and well, that was basically it. I'm happy that, you know, I managed to get everything deleted and help a lot of people, but still, sometimes you can never be too careful. But other than that, I mean, what would you do in this situation? Because if you do the same thing I did, then fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. Now, there's a lot of things you don't do in this world, and, you know, there's some things that are private information that needs to be kept private, but once it falls into the wrong hands, well, let's just say, ladies and gentlemen, that privacy ends up being public. And today's story is something about that. And honestly, it's a fair warning to all you children using your iPhones, going on Snapchat, you know, posting things on the internet. If you want something private, don't take a picture of it in the first place. Be smart with what you do. And that leads into today's story. But before I do, like I usually say, leave a like, subscribe if you guys do enjoy these stories. And on top of that, make sure you guys do follow me on Instagram. Let's see if we can reach 10K. We're at like 3.5 right now. So 10K would be nice. And when we do reach 10K followers, we're probably gonna be doing a giveaway on something awesome. I know, giveaways. I love them. But other than that, let's get straight into this. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy story. So today's story is honestly something absurd. It is actually insane. And it is something about basic privacy. Now, back when I was in high school, one popular app that I think we all still love to this day was Snapchat. Snapchat's still popular to this day, and you guys can follow me on Snapchat for any updates and, you know, I guess seeing me go out and doing the devil's tango. Well, actually, I don't post me doing it, but chances are you're gonna see me in a club and with a bunch of women. But going on, I remember back when I was in high school, like I said, Snapchat was the most popular app, and a lot of girls used it. It was the main way to communicate and stuff and go through things. And I remember during my grade 11th year, we had a new group of grade 9s come in. If you guys don't know, grade 9 is like the new like year. It's the new age of like, you know, when you transition to high school. And honestly, when you first enter high school, I don't know what it is with grade 12s in my high school at the time, but they would consider them fresh meat. Yeah, I'm kind of grossed out too. Don't worry, we're both grossed out in this situation. But I remember that when the grade 9s were getting a tour of the school and, you know, the school year was just beginning, I remember me and my friends were kind of just walking down the hallway and just kind of like, you know, saying hi to some of them that were walking by. Now me, I was not interested because what, when you're in grade 9, you're like what, 14 turning 15? That's gross. And I would stay away from that. But, you know, I said my hi, I said hello, and I walked away. And I remember there was one grade 9 that was staring me down always and asking me for my Snapchat, but I always said no to her because I'm 16, she's 14. That's gross. No, just and after meeting them and, you know, saying hello to most of them, I walked away, and honestly, I just said, screw it. I don't want to talk to any of them. They're not worth it. Ew, that's gross. I'm not doing something illegal. I do not want the FBI opening my door. I do not want to catch a case. Now, some of you guys are probably going to be like, oh, you wouldn't catch a case? Like, you were 16 and like she was 14. You guys gotta understand that a brain is not fully developed, especially a child's brain, until like you're the age of like 18 to 19. So like, you know, just hitting on someone back in high school that young was just not it. My golden rule was always a year younger or 2 years older, and it still is the rule to this day. But going on, I remember one time as I was walking around the school and I was kind of just, you know, chilling and stuff, and funny enough, I was talking to my friends. I remember my friend came up to me saying, yo bro, like there's this grade 9 that was asking for your snap apparently, and she wanted it, so I just gave it to her. You don't have to thank me, you can thank me later. And I look at him and I go, what? I realized that he ended up giving my Snapchat to the grade 9, and when I checked my phone, I saw I got an ad on there saying blah blah blah, added you. Yeah, no thank you. I remember I looked at my phone and she was staring me down as my friend walked up to me, and I remember I declined it. Or declined, by decline I mean I pressed X on it, and she was always confused. She tried messaging me but always went on pending. And I remember one time at lunch, she walked up to me saying, hey, like why didn't you add me back? Like, do you have like a problem with me? Like, do we have like a beef or something? I look at her and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just like not interested. Like it's just me. And I kind of just told her, you know, shoo, in a sense. I know it's kind of crazy how we went from telling stories about me always doing the devil's tango to, well, now me saying no to a chick. It's kind of changing. It's life changing actually. And honestly, like I said, it was the rare occasion of me saying no, but this specific girl, I said no because obviously for me the age gap is important. Going on though, I remember I walked away and I remember she walked away and we went our separate ways. She went to her classes, I went to my classes. A week went by and I remember my friend came up to me saying, yo bro, like check out this chick, bro. She ended up sending my friend at the time a Snapchat of her cherries, of her literal cherries, and the fact that he showed that to me made me want to burp. I literally looked at it and I'm like, whoa bro. I put my hand on my eyes. I'm like, I do not want to see that. Put it away. He ends up putting it away and I'm like, dude, she's like 15, like 14 turning 15. Like, why would you show me that? He's like, dude, you're 16. I'm like, I don't care, I'm 16. That's gross. And I walked away. Now, before anything, I should probably let you guys in a deep secret here. Boys talk, girls talk. Nothing's really private in this world. If something gets passed around, it's gonna be passed around. And this is where the situation gets worse. I remember the next day, people were talking about this girl and basically talking about her cherries. And honestly, I was grossed out. And I remember one time there was a guy who walked up to the grade 9 and said, yo, what's going on, shorty? And started grabbing her peach. And after that, he said afterwards, I think everyone saw those cherries you got, baby girl. Let me squeeze them a little bit. Whoa, what? I could tell that this girl wasn't happy. And I remember I walked in and I intervened and I'm like, yo, bro, like just stay away from her. That's gross. Like that's generally gross. The guy looked at me, which I should probably mention, he was in grade 12, literally decided to punch me. Yes, I got punched for a grade 9 that was sending explicit photos to guys in the school. Gross. Why did I do it? Why did I take a punch? Well, I don't know. It just kind of just happened. I can't explain it, honestly. I always have like that instinct where it's like I have to do something and go do it. But in this situation, it was just kind of crazy. I got punched. She starts freaking out. Teacher starts coming in and this whole conversation ended up happening. And I remember I got sent to the office. He got sent to the office. He ended up going home for, you know, doing physical abuse and I was stuck in school. I went to my next class and obviously everyone knew I got punched. So it was kind of embarrassing throughout the whole day. And I remember at the end of the school day, the grade 9 that came up to me that I defended in a sense said, hey, like, why'd you take that punch? Like, I thought you weren't into me. Like, do you want to like maybe like hang out? And she started putting her body up against mine and kind of like basically trying to like seduce me. I don't know. I honestly, it was pretty clear that she wanted to do the devil's tango with me. And I'm not gonna lie, back in high school, I had that reputation of always doing the devil's tango. But like I said, I had a golden rule for ages and she did not respect that, I guess. So I remember I pushed her off me and I said, listen, I'm not into you, too young. I don't want to talk to you. Just leave me alone. She ended up putting her arms across her like chest and she's like, are you serious? Like, is it because you don't find me attractive? Like, what is your issue? It's seriously, like, we're only 2 years apart. You cannot make such a big fuss over the littlest things. You're such a bum. She said something worse, but honestly, yeah, YouTube monetization. I remember she walked away from me and all the grade 12s were looking at me. Every single one. And they all came up to me saying, bro, like, that's a good thing you got away from that hoe. What? Everyone started pulling out their phones after I said what, and they all had photos of her. All of them. All of them had photos of her. And I was curious. I was like, why do you guys have these like in your phone? Like, what's going on? You guys are weird. Like, what? Then they ended up telling me that she didn't send them to everyone. It got spread around. Everyone found out that she was sending photos to one guy and it spread from another to another to another. And the worst part is that I knew exactly who the guy was. It wasn't the grade 12 that punched me earlier. It was another person. The person that showed me the photo in the first place. And I remember I walked up to him, which he used to be a good friend of mine, but not anymore. And I told him, you better delete those photos right now or I'm literally going to call the cops on you. You do not hold those photos. You do not spread those photos. She sent them to you in private. You keep it private. You're really messed up for that. And I said that in front of everyone and I walked away. Later, I found out that the girl that, you know, had photos spread about her was sitting in a corner of a room in a classroom crying. I remember I walked in there and I'm like, hey, I'm not into you. I'm not, you know, in any way like wanting to talk to you or call you a hoe or anything. But honestly, get yourself in check. Don't send those types of photos to people, especially at this age. We're all idiots. And I walked away. Knowing I had the reputation of doing the devil's tango, she questioned me a lot. But honestly, to this day, I'm still her friend and I still care about her and I still support her. And no, we never ended up doing the devil's tango, for all you guys wondering.
Now on the internet, it's very common for things to get leaked. The one thing I would say is that getting your eggplant leaked has got to be the most embarrassing thing ever. And trust me, this story gets really insane. But before we get into that, make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. And trust me when I say this, you're gonna want to subscribe for more crazy stories like this one. But other than that, let's just jump straight into today's crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to a really embarrassing story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in high school and this was my grade 11 year. Now in grade 11, I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't the wisest nor was I the most innocent. At this time, my body count was really high and honestly, I would do the devil's tango with whatever walked. But I gotta say, this one time back when I was in high school was really just embarrassing because I remember one time there was a girl in my theater class that I thought was really attractive. By the way, the reason I took theater in grade 11 was because I had a really bad stutter growing up and I still sometimes do, but you guys never get to see it because I always end up cutting it out of the video. But one thing I will say is that my stutter was really bad and I remember basically I want to find any way to get rid of it. So what I decided to do was take theater. And I remember when I entered theater class, it's actually very surprising how many attractive girls take theater. Because I will say this, there was one girl in my theater class that I found super attractive. Like, I am not joking when I say this. She was beautiful, she was smart, and also on top of that, she was just outstanding. Every time I looked at her, I'm not gonna lie to you, it made me want to do more theater than any other class. But obviously at this time, I was a major player, like I said earlier. So what I decided to do was walk up to her and just straight up ask her for her number. I remember this girl looked at me and for some reason, it seemed like she didn't like me, but at the same time, she actually ended up giving me her number. Everyone in the class saw this and I remember she ended up telling me, make sure you text me later. I ended up smiling feeling and actually being very shocked. And I remember when it became lunchtime that day, I ended up going up to my friends and telling them how I ended up pulling this girl's number. A lot of them looked at me very, in shock. And I remember one of my buddies had a girlfriend at the time, and she told me, "Bubba, you do know she actually really hates you, right? Why would she hate me? I didn't do anything to her." It's not that you didn't do anything to her, it's that she doesn't like who you are because of what girls have said about you. Now, when she said this, I knew what she meant, because at the time, like I said, I had a really high body count, and a lot of girls, well, they talk. So obviously I didn't have the best reputation. But one thing I will say is that I didn't really understand what this girl was trying to say. She's saying that she doesn't like me, but then she likes me, but then she doesn't. None of it made any sense whatsoever until later that night. And what happens later that night? Well, let's just say I got really naughty. I remember around nighttime, it was super late, and I remember I just finished playing video games with the boys, finished my homework, and I was just laying down in bed on my phone. And when I was on my phone, I remember this girl actually ended up texting me. She ended up texting me the "you up" message that most girls send when they want to interact with a dude super late at night. And I ended up texting her back saying, "Yeah, what's up?" And right away, instead of saying what was up, she ended up actually sending me a photo of her Snapchat profile. Now at this point, I knew what she wanted. She wanted me to add her on Snapchat, so that's what I did, because most girls for some reason feel more comfortable texting on Snapchat than on an actual number. And then afterwards, I remember she ended up basically snapping me saying "hey" with her face showing on the side. Now I don't know why people like to take half face photos, it makes no sense, but to be fair, back when I was in high school, I would do it a lot because my jawline was popping more than ever. So I ended up saying the same thing back, and then afterwards, me and her, we started talking. She started telling me how she heard about me a lot throughout the school, and how I was the master of the Devil's Tango. And I told her yeah, and I got a little cocky to the point where I remember she ended up asking to see it. Now when she asked me to see my eggplant, I was a little nervous. I'm like, whoa, I usually don't send photos like that, but at the same time, this girl was really attractive, and who knows where it'll take us. I remember I ended up sending a photo of my eggplant to her, and then she ended up sending me a photo of her cherries. And let's just say we started exchanging photos, which by the way, no one should do. Trust me, security reasons, safety reasons, don't do this. It is not appropriate to send photos as a young person doing this. It is not a good idea. So if anyone's watching this video, don't do what I did. But going on with the story, I remember we sent photos back and forth, and it got really to the point where it was just super weird, because I really did not feel comfortable doing this, but I still did it anyway because it was a girl I liked. And then I remember me and her, we ended up, having a good night that night. I ended up passing out after I busted. And then, well, the next day, what ends up happening, honestly, I think made me cry. I'm not joking. It was super embarrassing, because the next day when I went to school, a lot of people started staring at me for some reason, and I had no idea why. And I will say this much too, a lot of guys started staring at me, and almost basically every girl at my school was looking at me as if I just was walking around the school naked. It made no sense to me why everyone was looking at me. Until later that day, I remember I went to theater class, and I walked up to the girl that I was talking to the night before, my crush at the time. And I started talking to her and stuff, but she seemed to not want to talk to me at all. It was like she didn't even want to interact with me, nothing. It was like she hated me even more than she did before. And at that point, it made no sense to me, because everyone was staring at me as if I did something wrong, but yet this girl wouldn't interact with me. It was like the whole day was just flipped. And then I remember lunchtime came around. And when lunchtime came around, I remember I went to the boys to go sit with them at lunch, and my buddy ends up looking at me saying, "Yo, Bubba, I didn't know you were packing, bro." I remember I looked at him, I'm like, "Wait, what? What are you talking about?" And then afterwards, his girlfriend ended up walking up to me saying, "Bubba, you do realize that all the girls in the school have seen your eggplant?" "Wait, what do you mean? I didn't do that many people. I done most of the girls in the school, yeah, but not that many." "No, Bubba, I didn't mean like that, dummy. I mean, look at this." And at that moment, she ends up showing me a photo of my eggplant in a group chat full of girls in my school. At this point, I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And honestly, it was super weird how this girl decided to totally just leak my eggplant, to the point where I remember I went up to her after school that day, and I asked her why she did it. She ended up telling me that I needed a taste of my own medicine and stuff, and how, I needed to get more embarrassed than the girls I would leave and just do the Devil's Tango with. And she ended up telling me one final thing that to this day made me question everything, where she said, "Bubba, you have to stop treating women like objects." That's not what I was doing. It made no sense. She enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed what I was doing. Pleasure. I don't understand why in the world this girl put it that way. I remember a couple days went by, and a lot of people started realizing that my eggplant was leaked. And then I remember a week went by, and after a week, I remember, funny enough, I started getting DMs on my Instagram, which, by the way, you guys should follow my Instagram. And a lot of my DMs were filled with girls from other schools wanting to basically do the Devil's Tango. And honestly, even though this whole thing was made out to embarrass me, it seemed like that I ended up pulling more girls because of it. So at the end of the day, was I really losing? Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's embarrassing story. Make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.